Hey y'all, I want to talk about family and belonging. I think, hold on one second. Technology is distracting. And what I want to talk about is important. So let's talk about family and figuring out who you belong and where you belong in that context is incredibly painful. And our families are a literal microcosm of our broader community. We gain a sense of identity through understanding who we are through that our lens of who we're like, who we look like, who we remind people of. And also our family can be limiting. Our family can be reinforcing the same worldview over and over and over again. It can be exhausting to only have one message. And as a person with ADHD, it was one of those things of like, I know that my family is loving. I know that Jamaica is a loving place with lots of love for lots of people. But I find that it is hard sometimes to gain a sense of identity when you're always looking at yourself through the lens of what family thinks of you and how you fit into this context. But you're also here, and there's also so much world to see and things to do as a human being that is not social, though most, if not all, problems are interpersonal, right? All problems are interpersonal relationship problems. I believe that. And um, when we think about um, the psychology of family and the social structures therein, it can be incredibly debilitating to feel like things won't change and people won't see you in a different way and nothing improves and um that's so sad. But I also want to encourage us all to notice that there's so many people in this world in so many different contexts out there that might have an opportunity to improve our overall um, worldview, right? Diversity of thought. And maybe you being different is adding diversity of thought. And maybe adding in more input from other people, from other cultures, from other experiences could help this family address some of the things that we struggle with, right? Because sitting in with our muck and the problems that we identify um, when we're staring at it for too long, when you feel the impulse to move and galvanize that energy and put some smoke behind it, you're gonna have to go and collect data. You're gonna have to go and learn, and you're gonna have to go and make some motion. And that motion is going to be about collecting facts, like I said, learning. It's going to be about trying things. It's going to be about um, seeking inspiration. And so ultimately, when we think about family in that one context, we sometimes come back to family with renewed energy, with new vision. We come back and people aren't willing to accept that, aren't willing to take that. That's fine, because ultimately, like, that doesn't mean your contribution is invalid just because somebody doesn't want to accept it. There are so many other places in the world, so many other communities that we can belong to. Just because you are genetically related to somebody, it does not mean that they are the only context in which you can thrive, in the only context in which you can have a voice. And that doesn't invalidate family. Family is roots, family is ancestry, family is culture, family is um, such an important source of love and depth. And through family, we learn to love ourselves, because to love my family is to love myself. And I think that's so important. But to also love my family is also to know it and know its shortcomings, and to recognize opportunities for improvement, and to recognize wounds that need healing. And through our lessons in our families, through our lessons within those stories, we can bring knowledge and um, insight to others. And one of the things that is, I think, a burden often for people who don't um, want to accept the diversity of thought is that it makes us uncomfortable, right? It makes us wonder if we're wrong, if we're seeing things in the wrong way. But I think that wrong and right can be so limiting. And that's just not what human beings are like. Like, there are wrong ways to treat people, there are wrong ways to um, treat the world. There are things that you can do that are wrong. But I'd like to encourage a gentler approach to assessing the value of a human being, because as long as that person is not doing harm, I think their voice should also be listened to. And I think that the fear that we experience in wanting to keep things the same when we know that that stagnation is causing the wounds that we also complain about. I think that putting the judgment that we often feel from those who are outsiders looking in is that experience of being judged is what we're trying to all avoid. But we don't have to accept the idea that a person is inherently good or bad, but we can look at situations, inputs, tools in a much more um, loving appraisal. The idea that a person is maybe in the wrong context, in the wrong box, surrounded by the wrong things, for what would make them thrive. A pivot could be so helpful. You know, it's about so many different things. And when I think about my musings and my meditations as a person who is living in an island, a perfect, beautiful island that is made of imperfect but also beautiful people, I recognize that um, we benefit so much from that idea of out of many one people. And I want Jamaica to be a place that can grow and can benefit from um, other experiences, other notes that are all over the world, but also that can benefit the people who live here. It breaks my heart that Jamaicans, including myself, can't afford to live and thrive here. And I don't know. Um, I do know. I do know. Let me stop saying I don't know. I am brokenhearted by the alienation that we've experienced from our land and from our culture. Though my relationship with Jamaica is complicated and my relationship with family is complicated, it still is mine, and it still is so foundational. I never want to hide that I am Jamaican. I never want to hide that this is who I represent and who I come from. But also, as an American, as a human being, recognizing just also that I have to have an identity, right? Like, nobody in Jamaica is telling me not to have an identity. That's not what I'm saying. But in our loyalties to these different communities, we also have to give ourselves opportunity to take input and to grow and to be um, invested in and bloom. Um, yeah. And my heart breaks for the fact that so many people, including myself, go around feeling um, abused by these takers because we are being abused by these takers. But I think that if we had more pride in where we come from and more openness to see these things as input, but not necessarily as a correction to who we are and to where we represent and the identities that we um, kind of hide behind, but also like our vantage point. Like if we saw the vantage point that we come in as not wrong or right, but just a perspective, it would allow us to be much more fluid and open to change and open to um, growth and learning. And that's what I want to contribute to the zeitgeist. Instead of seeing change as violent, um, see change as input. And instead of seeing um, ourselves as having to be unworthy to accept change, to instead be present and experience with each other what the other person's saying and what the other person is trying to communicate, and take that in. Um, yeah, my goal on this earth, subtract, not my goal on this earth, my goal for this message specifically is to help you to see yourself as well as to um, recognize your community and the multitudes there, and for that not to be not on, I mean, obviously take pride in your community and your identity. There's nothing wrong with uh, loving where you come from and loving the roots, but that love doesn't have to be threatened by different perspectives, right? And so we can be bold. We can be bold because of the grounding of that love. Yeah.